This is Tim,
And this is Patrick.
and this is Critiquing Comics. Welcome to Critiquing Comics. This is Tim in Tokyo, this time with Patrick in Kumamoto. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's getting cold
Yes.
and then warm and then cold. It's very weird.
Yeah, it's been gradually getting a little colder here in Tokyo. I've still been managing to go jogging in the morning, but I'm not sure how much longer I'm going to do that. It was raining today, so I didn't, but
Well, props to you for exercising at all. I have an exercise bike 2 feet from me that is covered in dust. You know, props to you.
all right, so our comic this time is called Wynter, spelled with a Y, Wynter, written
That's
by...
how you know it's classy, though.
Yeah,
When it has a Y. That's when you really know it's classy.
and it's the name of the main character. It's not talking about the season. That might have been another reason for changing the spelling, so we wouldn't think that it was just about snow and cold.
Well, honestly, from a SEO standpoint, having
Yeah, that's another reason.
unique spelling
Hmm.
is always going to be better
Yeah.
than because the name of the company, New Worlds Comics, is like there's so many comic companies out there that have Brave New World, New
Mhm.
World, and comic storylines with New World, New Worlds.
Hmm.
So a win in the comic title department, not so much in the company naming department.
So this was written by, well, we're guessing at pronunciation here, Guy, or could be Guy if he goes by the French pronunciation, Hasson, who we found, or Patrick did a little searching. It didn't occur to me to do that, but Guy is apparently Israeli and has written novels, films, and so
Short
forth.
stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's won some awards for his short story work.
Hmm. And the artist, who is Hungarian, his name is Aron. El- yeah, I'm going to make a stab at this. Elkes.
Yeah, that's what I would go with. That's
Hmm.
it's either Elkes or Elkes. Yeah.
Hmm. And the story basically is about this young woman named Liz Wynter, who lives on a planet called Melantho. But the situation there, I mean, it looks like it could be Earth in a couple hundred years. And, higher technology than we have.
Right. It's like technology that we've all are used to as a science fiction trope, and that in some ways we're close to. But the fact that the whole galaxy has been colonized by humanity means that it can't be just a few years. It has to be far, far in the future,
Well, yeah, that's true.
because they're talking about, well, one of the themes of the well, the basic setting is that there's so many billions and billions and billions upon billions of people that the same combinations of DNA basically are able to happen again and again. That's
Hmm.
how many people there are.
Right, and so, and it's at the beginning, she's saying that she's not special because someone exactly like her has existed numerous times. I guess at one point she says, what, there have been 250,000 people exactly like her. And so that allows the government has stored that information in the computer, and so they're able to anticipate, what she's going to do, because based on that personality that has been held in the past already, they know what she will do.
Yes, which is pretty deterministic. Like if you
Hmm.
have these genes, this is exactly what you will do. That's pretty deterministic. Like I understand if there's so many, like, okay, do you know Isaac Asimov's Foundation series?
I know of it, yeah.
Well, the Foundation series is about something called psychohistory, which is the history of the future. And it's a science that is able to basically tell what will happen in the future based on huge chunks of population. In other words, it can only predict like over billions and billions, like a whole galaxy full of people. It can't predict individual movement. And sometimes it's an individual who messes the whole thing up. So this is kind of an opposite take where they're saying every individual's movements can basically be guessed at.
Hmm.
And so they're able to make predictions about terrorist acts, so-called terrorists that
Hmm.
want to bring down the government, and they're able to use that predictive technology to preemptively strike.
But yeah, you're right. Saying that that person, that type of person, that exact DNA structure's person is going to have the exact same personality assumes that it's all nature and not nurture at all.
That's yes, yes. And like, I can only talk personally, but personally I am well, okay, I can say like this comic itself seems to be railing against like every teenager that was ever born. Okay. It's telling teenagers, y'all shut up,
Mm-hmm.
because you're not special. And, your attempts at being special, like shaving your head and getting a mohawk and tattooing
Yeah.
your eyelids, whatever,
Face piercings.
basically hundreds and thousands of people have done the exact same thing. You're not special. Shut up, go to bed, or whatever. I don't know. That's kind of like how I read the first couple pages, and I got a quick, like an immediate echo of Alan Moore's Halo Jones,
Hmm.
because at the beginning Halo is this very disaffected, going with the flow, teeny bopper
Mm-hmm.
that is, just taking the drugs that everybody's taking and doing the things that everybody's doing. And but from our perspective is a pretty wild lifestyle. Uh, so I don't know. I just got echoes of that when I read it for a couple of different reasons.
Hmm. I see. And yeah, so they've got the technology like you see Tony Stark using in the MCU movies, where you've got just like your screen is like in midair, just projected, and you're moving stuff around with your hands. And they just walking around can steal apps from other people around them. I don't quite understand how that works, but um,
Yeah, the one friend has this app that allows her to just like steal apps. We don't know if it's how random it is or how it works or anything, but it's able to steal apps from people nearby. And like a lot of good, fun, exciting, paranoid noir stuff, it's somebody gets the wrong app and gets the wrong information that gets
mm-hmm.
them in trouble.
Yeah.
And what that app does is it looks like it's basically predicting.
An attempt at overthrowing the government.
That's right, like insurgent movements.
And at first they just think it's some kind of a simulation and it's just kind of something cool and doesn't really mean anything. But then later it turns out that it was actually detecting a real coup attempt.
So as far as like for that point, I think this is, I think there's a lot of possibility in that. There's a lot of ideas that can be used based on that. Like we have a galactic galaxy. I'm sorry. Yeah, galactic government.
Yeah.
Galactic galaxy. Galactic government, and which is invasive because every person has implants and a voice that constantly tells them not to be a teenager and think they're special.
Mm-hmm.
What really kind of though made me laugh is when I think it's in the third issue, there is like a chief of police type character. And that character, I like that character because his design is quite stylistic and not overly photorealistic. It looks like it was a comic character, and he's saying comic character things. And what he said, one thing he says is, as you police all know, like most crime is caused by people who think they're special. And that just kind of gave me a little chuckle because basically we have the teenagers trying to be special, and then we have like the authority figures like just very unsubtly trying to grind out any individuality whatsoever. But the fact that they use these basically like social media, but stuck in your heads to constantly remind you of facts and figures that you are not special. And even when you die, till your last breathing moment, that interior monologue is constantly saying, oh, you're seeing visions of heaven? Well, like everybody does that, so it's no big deal. Do you want to see the facts that say that that's not going to happen? It's very very depressing.
Yeah. So I felt like the first issue was kind of short on story and long on world building. I mean, at the end it kind of picked up, but as I was reading most of it, I was kind of like, okay, I don't feel like anything's actually happening.
Right. Well, I'm going to agree with you that a first issue is going to have some world building, and I didn't have a problem with the world building so much, except for I'm not sure what the sex in the hallway is supposed to mean. Like, are they saying that sex is open and people just do it wherever and whenever they want to? Is that what they're saying? Or is that her trying to be rebellious? Later on, you get the feeling that it's her trying to be rebellious because she's, I think it mentions she spends a lot of energy trying to feel special. And being a major slut is one of the ways she goes about doing so. And so it's, again, we're going back to like, this is somebody kind of railing against every teenager that was ever born.
Yeah.
I mean, if I can start like from the cover, I want to say that I like the cover of the first issue. I think this artist is technically very talented. The headline, Meet Liz Wynter, She's No One Special, immediately contradicted by the art showing her looking like she's manipulating the whole galaxy. I thought actually that's a good subtle thing. But you don't really quite know what they mean by no one special until once you get into the book, it's what the whole book is about. is specialness is important to her, and it's important that such feelings of specialness are stamped out by the authorities.
Hmm. Well, and we see that there is some kind of drug that parents can sneak into their kids' food that will make them stop feeling special.
Yeah, Quell. And I believe that they were just like advertising that, like on some screens.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure how that ad fit into the story.
Yes, that's a page that bothered me.
I
Um,
wasn't sure, like, was Liz given this? It wasn't clear.
I think she was. I read it. Let me look at that page again. I read it as she was. The ad was happening, like behind the teacher as she's talking to the teacher, but maybe it was in her mind. It just like.
Okay,
But that
it's
doesn't make any sense
yeah,
if
the
it's in her
eight
mind.
page 18 of the PDF of issue 1.
Hold on a second. I'm getting there. I'm a scrolling. Okay.
Oh yeah, right
Oh yeah, she's
behind
waiting.
there.
She was there with the teacher, and the teacher arrives, but Liz starts watching this commercial with
Mm-hmm.
uh looks like the guy from Doctor Who is.
Well, yeah, I noticed a number of so what one person in particular we'll get to a little later who is clearly a famous person is the model for that character. So I'm not surprised that you're finding others, but yeah, I guess that is an ad being projected in the background.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So this is one of the problems that I have with painted comics.
Hmm.
And I've read a couple, well, several, that have a very similar feel to them. They're mostly dark, and they're the layouts are like very free. And while creatively I can understand the wanting to do layouts like that, as a reader,
Mm-hmm.
it puts a lot of the heavy lifting onto the reader to figure out what's happening in these panels.
To figure out what's happening, and sometimes also to figure out in what order they happen.
Yes, some panels, like some of the way that these borders are drawn,
Mm-hmm.
it looks like the pages are split right in two, but actually I think you're supposed to go right first and then down, but it's just not clear. It's just your eye follows the line pointing down. And that's why, like, good layout is probably the hardest skill to learn. And but you have to read a lot of the old, just regular comics. You just have to read the masters,
Mm-hmm.
like Kirby for American comics, Kuwata Jiro for Japanese comics. Look at how these people lay out a page. Your eye can't help but follow the action. Uh, there's there's nothing wasted, no space wasted, and so the pacing is good. But in this, the pacing is often bad. It's just too slow in areas. Whole pages that could be a panel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's the page where she goes back to her house and decides not to go in her house, and we don't know quite what's happening on that page. We have to kind of figure it out
Yeah,
next
some
page.
pages that Mulele and I have seen this in other comics too, and I think some of those were probably painted where, yeah, they look like some of the panels just look like poses, and you're not really sure what's supposed to be happening, but there's no dialogue either, maybe, so it's kind of puzzling what's happening.
That's right. And so that's one point I want to mention is like, yeah, I can't. I mean, there's lines to break up the I guess it's supposed to be these breaks in the page will give us a sense of time passing. But so like she's moving within the same space, but it's a little bit different time. But it's not clear at all, and we're not sure from the expressions on her face what she's feeling or thinking, and we have constant access to her inner dialogue. And when the first time we switch to another character's inner dialogue, we have constant access to that. And I find it tiring. I really do.
Yeah, when their computer systems keep pointing things out, it's asking, like, do you want to see so-and-so? Like, okay. I mean, I think it's driving the characters crazy, too, but it's also driving me crazy.
Well, that might be intentional because it's very oppressive feeling. It might be intentional and might be, we're supposed to be feeling uncomfortable, but it's pushing me in the direction so hard that I'm not having fun.
Yeah.
Reading the comic. The tone is very heavy. It's very dark. The art is very dark.
Also, there's a problem with the placement of the dialogue boxes, narration, and sometimes word balloons too. And especially, first of all, we're old, so we need bigger lettering.
This is true. Like I had to, luckily I was reading a PDF on my computer. I can blow it. I have a huge screen and I can blow this up really big, but my eyes are not good anymore. And on a printed page, this lettering size would look extremely tiny.
Yeah, I'd probably be breaking out the magnifying glass if I were reading this on paper.
Yep.
When there's just one sentence in it, depending on what's behind it, it's easy to even miss the existence of the narration box. Yeah.
There's that. There's also narrating things that we can see, like her spitting on her dad, and then it said, "I spit on him." Yeah, I know. I saw it.
It's John Byrne comics.
Yeah. So that's a problem there. Another problem is things like, "I insult him." No, show us. Insult him. Show us.
Well, I think this is a problem that prose writers sometimes have when they switch to comics, because they're so used to explaining everything in words, and they don't let the pictures do enough work.
Well, this is where I'm agreeing with you 100%. This is somebody who is actually not that familiar with the format, because the writer is also the publisher. We know he's also going to be the editor.
Yeah.
And in other words, there's not an independent editor who knows comics doing the editing. Doesn't mean that he's not familiar with comics. He's never read comics, but he's definitely new to creating comics. This is a problem I've seen with people who teach comics. Actually, I reviewed something recently by a guy who teaches comics, but he doesn't use the tropes established, like firmly established for over 100 years, about how comics read well and how readers take in that information.
Yeah, that's a problem with your teaching comics, and you. Well, I'm looking at issue 2, the 8th page of the PDF, although it's numbered as number 7 on the page. But it's compounded by scrolling through the comic, because the first box I see is the one over on the right side, which is clearly continued from a previous one because it's got ellipsis, but I can't see the other one because it's way down the
Yes,
page.
yes, yes.
But even if I'm looking this on as print, the expectation is that you're going to be reading from box to box, from left to right, and from top to bottom. And in this case, you're going from bottom to top.
And see, even though this electrical, like lightning thing in front of her is supposed to act as like a border,
Yeah, panel border.
Of a panel border, even if that was a traditional panel border, you still want to place your narration boxes so that they can be read on the page from top to bottom. Just because in your mind we know that this panel is separate by itself, we're still looking at the page as a page. And so you can't just place those panels you can't just place those narration boxes within that separate universe of a panel. You also have to think about it on the page. And I think that would definitely make it a lot easier to read.
Yeah. And then if you go to the very next page, the problems with the art and the problems with the dialogue boxes, the narration boxes, combine to make a really difficult reading experience where you're following the panel and the boxes down off to the right, and then suddenly you have to go left. And I initially read these boxes out of order because I didn't quite notice where the panel borders were, and it's just, you shouldn't have to, because all the boxes together should be moving top to bottom and left to right.
Yes, so this is again, like I said before, making the readers do all the heavy lifting. I had to go back pages, I had to go back panels to try to figure out what was going on. Sequences that did not need extra poses, extra panels, they could have been handled in one panel. Like, for example, like I mentioned before, the she going home, that's a one panel thing that you can do where you see somebody at their door and put their body language so that they obviously don't want to go in, and you could do that in maybe a 1-2 panel thing, and then you have more room to flesh out areas which aren't as clear.
I just want to describe this page, or the top half of this page, for the listeners. So we've got a space scene. There's a planet or two. Those two planets are awful close together on the left side. And then kind of a satellite probably, and a ship going towards the satellite. And this is like a large panel, but the lower left quarter of it is covered by another panel, and you're supposed to read all the boxes in the first panel first, down over to the right, and then down, and then the overlapping panel has a couple of boxes in it that come after, and you have to go up and to the left to read the next box, and it's really counterintuitive.
Yes, and it's like, I hate to be the oppressive government telling the teenagers to stop trying to be so creative and individualistic.
Special. You're not special. You have to follow the comics rules.
Do you want to know how many other early comics creators make pages like this? My point is that, you need to actually do some, I think, traditional, old-fashioned comic layouts and work through those, and then you can graduate to more exciting, more interesting panel layout that speaks to you. I don't see any reason why in this panel, like the fourth panel, needs to be cut in like that by the second panel instead of or is that, See, yeah, it's okay. The first panel is an L, I guess, and then that second panel does go there. But
Hmm.
it's very, very hard to read.
Yeah,
I
if
think
the overlapping panel were to the right side, that would be a lot better. Just
maybe,
even
yeah,
without the narration boxes, the art itself is a problem, and that overlapping panel should be to the right.
yeah. Like I think that this artist's as far as like depth of field and backgrounds and like people are it's great. He's very technical, did a lot of great stuff.
Hmm.
One problem that you have with painted comics is that you have these kind of sometimes these unfinished backgrounds, like the city scenes. Sometimes you can see the pencil, and it it seems like a stylistic choice, but it's I don't know. It just not one of my favorite things to happen. And I think this artist had a lot of challenges to deal with. Like he's got the two layers of reality, what we can see, and then what the people can see in their minds thanks to their implanted contact lenses or whatever. Uh, so there's definitely some challenges to the story, and I think some of those challenges were handled pretty well. Um, it's more about comic literacy, like just knowing how comics are read.
Hmm. Another thing that always bothers me about painted comics is that the figures tend to look stiff to me. I don't really get a sense of movement.
Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. This is because you have posed
Hmm.
characters. You're using actual real people, and that's fine. That's fine, depending on your story. That could be fine, but you're kind of missing out on the potential
Hmm.
of the comic medium when you don't uh, push those poses to be, if it's just regular people standing around, oh, that's like the worst.
Mm. But I feel
Just the
like
worst.
even when the people in the panel are supposed to be moving, even if it's an action scene, it feels static to me.
Yes. Yeah, it's the difference between like, oh boy, I'm going to get 1970s here. It's the difference between like Boris Vallejo paintings versus Frazetta paintings.
Mm.
Boris Vallejo paintings are all photo realistic,
Mm.
and Frazetta, there's a lot more style. There's a lot more brushstroke left in the art, which makes it, a lot more dynamic, a little looser, but there's definitely more movement going on there. Vallejo was able to do it because of like the weight of the characters, like where their weight would be. You could feel them coming at you, you know? They didn't look like they're resting on the backs of their heels. They do look like they're about to come forward at you. So that's a positive here. But this, yeah, it's a lot of straight up and down. Um, I had a problem with she's breaking the car window in on page, what is this? Page 18 of the first one. She's
Oh.
breaking the car window with something that she has in her hand, which I didn't even know she had something on her. I don't know what that is. I really don't. Uh, but we don't see the impact. We do see a very poorly created sound effect.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't want people to use this font for
Mm.
for sound effects.
Well, and also I would say, her the action of her breaking the window, it would be more effective if the breaking were in the foreground. But we're kind of looking at her sort of from the back, and she's reaching backward from us to break the window. Although the window doesn't even look like it's breaking; it just has a sound effect crash. But
That's right.
I don't see
We
glass
don't see it
breaking in
break.
that panel.
This is a problem. The same thing with like we don't see people actually speaking. We just have like narration to it, like I spoke.
Hmm.
Uh, but this is one where I wasn't sure what was being crashed. And so she's swinging something at the window, but in the next window, she's swinging through the broken window, and so it's not clear. It looks like actually she's broke the window when she swang through it, instead of when she hit it.
Well, where she's hitting it is not where it's broken in the next panel. It's broken in the center.
Well, see, so like that's why I was thinking maybe we're not seeing the impact. They didn't show us the impact.
Yeah.
It's her fist is still in mid-flight.
Hmm.
Uh, but it's terrible placement for a sound effect, terrible font usage for the sound effect. I'm really picky about sound effects, you know that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you're Mr. Sound Effects.
Please do not use this font anywhere near your comic ever again. This is a horrible font. It's not good for sound effects.
What do you not like about it?
This kind of sound effect is kind of flaring at the bottom, each one.
Mm-hmm.
And so...
Looks kind of wacky.
Yeah, it's wacky. It's for a comedy kind of thing. And then so like basically the edges are flying off instead of making one kind of comprehensive sound.
Mm-hmm.
It forces you to accept these letters as individual letters, and I'm trying to tell them they're not special. But they're trying to be special.
And they looked a little too soft and squishy, where it's for breaking glass, I'd want something more angular looking.
Yes, that's a good point. And if you want a serious comic to have really like good sound effects, have them painted as part of the art. I think that can be so successful if done right. Harrow County is one of my favorite recent comics, and a horror comic. It's a horror comic, and it's really hard to do sound effects in horror comics without it being campy. But the artist who does that is Tyler Crook, I think his name is. He's amazing. The sound effects they jump out of where that sound should come from. And it's integrated into the art instead of looking like it's placed on like a whole nother layer.
Here's another thing I don't like about the sound effect. The placement of it. You're reading it in the opposite direction of the impact. She's swinging from right to left, but it's going like up and to the right towards her fist.
Yeah. Yes, and that is a very good point. That is a very good point. The K should be like where the window is, and then it should come out to where like we expect the glass to be shooting out or something like that. So yeah, these are problems that can be fixed. I mean, I think this comic, like the advice that we're giving, I think if followed, this could be a much more interesting, high-paced, exciting thing to read.
Also, shouldn't the movement itself be left to right? Because we're reading left to right, and I've heard that you don't have a car going right to left in a comic because it's going against your reading direction, and it makes it feel kind of stopped, kind of. You know what I mean?
See, I know that rule. I'm very familiar with that rule, but I don't always agree with it just because sometimes it is used successfully.
Oh yeah, sometimes it has impact when you do it that way.
To jar the reader. And in the end, it's like, did it work? Did it, did it bug you? And if it bugs you, then it's not successful. So it bugs me more that we don't see the impact of the crash than her swinging in from right to left. That doesn't bug me as much. But I have to tell you, I'm not a typical comic reader. I read a lot of Japanese comics from the other direction. So I'm a lot more flexible when it comes to that kind of thing.
By the way, on page 21 of the first issue, did you recognize Judge Judy?
I was guessing. I don't watch Judge Judy enough, but I was guessing that's who that was supposed to be.
Yeah,
Like
well,
I
I
was
pulled her
kind
up on
of
the web.
guessing.
Yep, that's her.
Okay. Yeah, and so yeah, this person is working from a lot of I guess
Yeah, photo
like
reference.
photo reference, which is okay. That's okay. You can cast people in your comic. I mean, in The Boys, which is uh, the TV show, is getting a lot of good reactions. Like in the comic, the main character, Wee Huey, is totally based on Simon Pegg, and this is before Simon Pegg was, so easily recognizable.
Hmm.
But you can't not see Simon Pegg in The Boys. Uh, so I don't mind that so much. I don't mind that, and I actually like the character, the judge character. There's it's dynamic. It's you can totally see there's anger involved
Mm-hmm.
in the sentencing there. I don't get the dad. The dad's a little bit too young.
Hmm.
I don't get the dad, but
So you
you
were
know,
saying before we started recording that you wondered if the fact that the artist and writer are so physically separate might be causing any communication problem.
well, they mentioned in the back matter that the writer slash publisher mentioned that he has never talked to the artist. It's all been through email.
Mm-hmm.
And I've worked with different creative people through email, and have to admit it's quite a challenge. There's a lot of wording that can be kind of taken different ways if you're not careful. Um, so even when I was writing a webcomic with our mutual friend Tomoko Hirabayashi,
Hmm.
I had to call her up and, like just so we could kind of question each other very quickly and respond immediately to misunderstandings about what was needed in the story. Um, so yeah, I think this is I have several acquaintances that do make comics through a kind of crowd-sourced
Mm-hmm.
method,
Hmm.
and they have similar difficulties, I think, in the final product.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that can be totally avoided just through having an editor who knows comics do
Hmm.
the editing, and not the writer doing the editing.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're the writer and you're doing the editing, you're not really looking objectively.
Yeah.
You really want your words to do their
Mm-hmm.
work.
Yeah, and you know the story too well already, and you know things that may not be coming out on the page effectively, but the editor is coming to it new and will notice, like, huh, what are you trying to say here?
Exactly, that's exactly true. I have that same problem. I have that same problem when it comes to writing my own stuff, or even drawing my own stuff. Did I give them all the information that they need to have? Is it clear?
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to judge by yourself. So I think the addition to this publishing company of an editor would really serve them well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, when they use that same font they used well, no, it's not the same, but it's a similar kind of font for the to be continued that totally goes against the style or the feel, the mood
Hmm.
of the book. I would say don't do that. Don't do that. And also some of the fonts. I had a problem with every time the percentile was
sign.
used, the percent sign, it looked like a zero and a slash.
Yeah, I do remember
And
subconsciously noticing that.
yeah, so I had trouble reading some of the numbers. Like again, I had to go back and check. And I mean, I like the theme, the topic that individuality is the cause of crime.
Yeah, some interesting ideas.
Yeah, it's but I mean, it's simplistic in the fact that it's ignoring every other thing that causes crime, like class struggle or racism, sexism. There's all the other things that we're actually dealing with have been ignored. So either the future society has progressed in some areas and then not made any progression when it comes to other areas.
So, if you would like us to critique your comic, send a PDF or a link to mail@deconstructingcomics.com, and we'll read at least 30 pages of it and critique it on the show. Anything you want to plug?
Right now, I'm not plugging anything. I will be eventually. So maybe next time. But I just do want to encourage these creators to, don't give up. There's a lot of good things that can be fixed for these comics, and so we're not critiquing to be mean. We're really hoping that you can take some constructive criticism,
yes,
and use it to your advantage.
Yeah. I guess
because
one thing,
most people around you, they're just going to tell you how much they like it.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Well, one thing we should plug is the Law of Equivalent Exchange.
That's correct.
With our Fullmetal Alchemist manga podcast, which is up to this point, it's coming out once a month in the Deconstructing Comics feed, right where you're hearing this, but we're trying to reach a Patreon goal to put it in its own feed and come out more frequently than once a month. So patreon.com/deconcomics. So thanks for listening, and thank you, Patrick.
Yeah, my pleasure. Let's do this again.
On Wednesday, Mulele and I review the film Captain America: The First Avenger. See you then.